Welcome back to Honored Madman. So, out of all the palette-swapped regional knights, the only group that we never see, well, alive, that is the Gelmir Knights. Mount Gelmir is the volcanic domain of the infamous demigod Praetor Rykard. Also known as the Blasphemous One, he waged war against the Erd Tree. This turned his region into a no-man's land of sorts, basically just a war-torn battlefield where these forces fight an unending battle against each other. It goes without saying that it turned into one of those horrors of war situations really quick up on Mount Gelmir, with some of the Leyndell just feasting on their own dead and some even turning frenzied. But there are no Gelmir knights or soldiers or foot soldiers found on the mountain. Instead, the forces of Rykard are represented by Inquisitor robots and marionettes and avionettes. And at his castle it's more or less the same, except with the addition of Snake Men, who are basically the main garrison for Volcano Manor, at least by the point of the game. So this begs the question, what happened to the Gelmir Knights? Well, we know at least one of them tried to take out Rykard after his transformation into the big serpent. According to him, he was trying to kill the serpent that ate Rykard, and that prior to him being consumed, Rykard's actions, while blasphemous, marked him as a fit sovereign, someone worth following. But that after he gave himself to the serpent, it gave way to gluttony and depravity. So it seems like the knights were down with Rykard waging war against the Erd Tree. They had no problem with that, because at the end of the day it was originally a noble cause. He was just trying to free people from the will of the gods, just like his sister, but in his own way. I imagine he wasn't a big fan of what Radagon and the Golden Order did to his mom either. Rykard also questioned why the Tarnished were sent away, and when they did eventually return, he managed to turn several of them against the Erd Tree and the Greater Will. So it seems like he was a pretty charismatic leader as well. But anyway, this knight obviously failed in his attempt to slay the serpent, so he entrusts this task to you and tells you that, hey, I left the serpent killing blade in there. And the most interesting thing about his dialogue is that the only reason he wants you to slay the serpent, and therefore Rykard, is to spare his lord from further dishonor. So even in his horrifically blasphemous state, he still commands an enormous amount of respect from the ghosts of his dead men. But basically this tells us that at least one of his knights tried to take him out and was killed but not eaten, because we know that the spirits of those consumed by Rykard become his flaming rancors. So this knight was likely wounded and bled out and died, or managed to escape Rykard's chamber and then died, but left the spear behind, because he's able to materialize in the manor in ghost form and even speak to the player. But what about the rest of them? He definitely had more than just one knight, obviously. Well, it's safe to assume that at least a handful of them left when Rykard gave himself to the serpent, going off of that one knight's dialogue. And the ones that stayed were probably consumed because to Rykard it was a great honor to let themselves be consumed by him. So I'd say at least some of those rancors he can summon are the ghosts of his former knights, or what's become of the ghosts of his former knights. Other ones presumably left, but we know of at least one who was given a hero's burial. At Gelmir Hero Grave, one of the infamous Chariot dungeons, you can access a secret room that's sort of like this elaborate tomb for a fallen Gelmir knight. Much like Artorias in Dark Souls, this knight's pet dog watches over his gravesite. So this knight was presumably a hero of one of the battles at Mount Gelmir. It's unclear if he died before Rykard gave himself to the serpent or after, although I would assume this happened before. But it could just as likely be one of the ones that were loyal to Serpent Rykard and continued fighting his battles for him. Either way, this individual possessed a unique pet in the form of a Bloodhound Knight. They're essentially this game's Outrider Knights who are fiercely loyal to whoever holds their leash. And we see from this tomb that they have a lot in common with actual dogs. This one refuses to leave its master's side even in death. That's just one of the details I really liked when I came across it. I still hated the dungeon it was in though, but it was a pleasant surprise. So as of right now, it looks like that Rykard replaced all of them, ate the ones that stayed, and the other ones eventually all just died off or are just far away and not a part of the game. But the last piece of evidence we have about what became of them comes from their item descriptions. The armor, in particular. Armor worn by the knights once loyal to Praetor Rykard. It bears an emblem that none wear any longer, standing as it does for a lord that fell from the lofty ambition into gluttonous depravity. As the lord lost his dignity, so too did these knights lose their master. So like all item descriptions, it's fairly vague but gives us enough to go on and theorize about. But I think it supports the idea that most of them just abandoned Rykard, and that the ones who did stick around either died or were eaten. And if there are still some alive, they no longer wish to bear the red feather of Rykard on their helmet. That's for sure. Which is why Rykard has tarnished, snakes, and machines doing his bidding these days. But anyway, that's all I really wanted to discuss was the little bit of knowledge we have about the Gelmir Knights. I've been wanting to do a little something about them since I found that little room in Gelmir Hero's grave, but I never really got around to it, so I figured I would do that today. And I hope you guys found this informative. If you liked it, please consider liking it. If you disliked it, dislike it. And if you like hearing me talk about Elden Ring lore or TV shows or just whatever random shit crosses my mind enough to make a video about, please consider subscribing. That would really help me out, and I'd really appreciate that a lot. My next video will be up tomorrow, probably about the House of the Dragon episode that's coming out, followed by a video about all of the knights or Ranni's plot, whichever one finishes first. But I want you guys all to have a good day and be safe, and let's have our outro. And also check out this dope art that one of our viewers sent me.
Someone please kill him. That horrendous serpent. Praetor Rykard. You're tarnished. Here to put the demigods to the sword. Then please, kill the great serpent. The one that devoured Praetor Rykard. I left the serpent-slaying spear in the Lord's chamber. Worthy tarnished. Brandish the spear and run him through. The great serpent. That unspeakable monstrosity. Praetor Rykard's ambitions, though blasphemous, marked him a worthy sovereign, but they were reduced to gluttonous depravity once he gave himself to the serpent. Whatever that thing is, it is no longer Praetor Rykard. Someone must kill him to spare him and his ambitions from further dishonor.